And once again, I want to say greetings to each and every one of you, Aquaba, and welcome. Welcome to another round of our Sunday morning get together. We call this the Mastermind here on LIB Radio, LIB TV here on livinginblack.com. The Mastermind is where you and I and our colleagues get together and we discuss world affairs, very important affairs. We deal with entertainment, economics, education, health, labor, law, politics, religion, family, conflict, future studies, all areas of human interactivity and development. Today's date is Sunday, the 16th of November, year 2025 in the Western calendar, the Gregorian calendar. This corresponds to the year 6265 in the Kemetic calendar, to which we have realigned our cultural clock. Welcome to the seventh millennium. And you have found your family in a peaceful place here on LIB Radio, LIB TV, and on livinginblack.com. Let me welcome in my colleagues in microphone. We have joining us from the Eastern Seaboard, Baba Junius is in the house. Welcome, Baba Junius.
Madasi, thank you, and good to be here.
It's great to have you with us. Brother Dewara, great to have you with us, our beautiful, invisible brother. How are you today?
I am doing great, Babas. Thank you so much. Continuing to walk in the footprints of elephants, Ashe.
I say. You know, we need to put up a feather as an avatar or something for you. It's like just have, whenever you speak, we'll have the feather just twitch a little bit. How's that?
I appreciate that. I put a Sankofa bird as my avatar, but for some reason, over the last 6 months or so, I haven't been able to get up on stage. So I don't know.
It's not up on stage. Let me see. I do see your Sankofa bird, but I don't know why it's not up on stage. I have you on the air, but we'll work on it this week. I'll check it out and get back to you on that.
No problem.
A lot has been going on this week. We did some awesome programs here on LIB Radio this week. One program we did focus on was Trump's belligerence towards Nigeria. I think is very, very important for us to talk about today, that belligerence against Nigeria. And there is a lot of talk. Trump sent his Secretary of War, Hagsbeth, to prepare a U.S. Invasion plan or boots on the ground to assist Nigeria in fighting foreign terrorism. But many people are saying it's just a ploy for Donald Trump to attempt to gain control over Nigeria's rare earth minerals and the petroleum. Your thoughts?
Well, if you step back and look at what's happening, you're starting to see a pattern here. So Nigeria has oil, Venezuela has oil, as well as natural resources, and so does Ukraine, so does Sudan,
Congo.
And if you look at the demon who just made transition last week, Dick Cheney, that we clearly saw in his machinations and in his office being vice president was to locate and attempt to secure access and control over all the resources, particularly petroleum, in the world. So I think Trump is just doing a continuation of that.
I see. Okay. You know, Dwara, I think what you might need to do at the bottom of your viewing panel of the screen, you see a video button there.
Yes. Unclick that.
Click it and make sure it's on and not got a slash through it. Nope, that took you out completely. We'll figure out what's going on. You can unclick it now. Or click it, whatever you did. Whatever you did, undo it. And Dwara, I don't see him now. Okay, he'll be done. Okay, that didn't work, so we'll try something else. But we were just talking about the threats against Nigeria. Did you have any comment you wanted to share on that as well, Brother Dwara?
I don't think he's
Oh,
back.
yeah, I have him on add to the stage. Sorry about that. That was my bad.
No,
I
no
got you
problem.
on the stage now, Brother Dwara. Did you have any
Oh,
comment you wanted to share on that?
absolutely. Thank you, Baba. And I wholeheartedly agree with what Baba Junius so wonderfully stated, is that there is a definitely a pattern here that we have to pay attention to. I'll add Congo in the mix as well in terms of
Mm-hmm.
minerals and things that are needed for this so-called Eurasian Uruguayan modernity. The other thing I wanted to quickly say, though, is that we must pay attention to the propaganda that is lauded against our continental African family. Nigeria is not without problems. Nowhere in the world right now is without problems. However, Muslims and Christians and traditional indigenous spiritual systemed peoples of Nigeria, like the rest of the continent, live in relative harmony with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Ethiopia is another glaring example of the harmony that can occur, the Mayatean balance and harmony that can occur between people of various faiths, but who all have more or less an African worldview, despite their religious preference. So
Mm-hmm.
I just want to spotlight that and say that the news often inflates these dystopian and backward images of the continent, when in reality we have to remember that these things, Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, etc., in Somalia, those things happen in very minuscule pockets, I would argue. The majority of Nigeria, the majority of the continent, live in relative peace and harmony amongst each other according to those traditional African values.
Very good points you make. When I was in Uganda, and I was spent about, I think, what, 6 weeks or more in Uganda. There was right in the middle of a Christian neighborhood, right next to where I was staying, there was a Muslim mosque. And there was a very high level of tolerance. There was no conflict at all in there. I witnessed the same thing in Ghana and Kenya to a great extent, except for when you're talking about northeastern Kenya, which bucks up against Somalia. And that's where you do see the conflicts now taking place between the Muslims and the largely Christian nation. But I do agree with you completely, Dwara, that left to our own instincts, it's very easy for Christians, Muslims, indigenous faiths, and I think we really do need to re-emphasize the power of indigenous spirituality across Africa. They're all subject to the African consciousness, which is religious tolerance, religious acceptance. The fact that someone else carries a great degree of faith and that faith guides their lives to a disciplined order and makes them easy to live with, that's a good thing. Unless Urugu's thrown in the mix, then Urugu uses everything that they can find, Baba Junius, as a point of divide and conquer.
Exactly. And one of the things that you both touched on is that, for the most part, African people are very tolerant because of the xenophilia, that consciousness of the welcoming of the stranger, because that stranger has within them the ashe, the jock, the nomo, whatever term they use for the vital life force. We recognize that. It's only when you become immersed in the Western notion of individualism, which denotes disconnectedness and isolation and fear, and the other, quote unquote, becomes a threat, that we see these things develop. Of course, you have, greed and avarice and things like that in the mix. But for the most part, because of our emphasis on good character and tolerance, people got along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. People got along, and we can reestablish this order for our future, but it's going to take a lot of strategic planning, a lot of playing, because right now, according to my analysis, there's a great competition coming on around the world. I'm recalling the book written by Johann Galtung, which you've heard me reference that book many times here on LIB Radio. And it was The End of the U.S. Empire. What next? Now, this is the same Johann Galtung that made several predictions based upon his formula. He had a theory, a formula that he applied, and he could see these changes happening in the world. He did predict the Iranian Revolution in 1979. He did predict a collapse of the Soviet Union. I think it was around 1981 or something, maybe 1989 or so. And he did predict, there was one other major prediction that he had, and these were fairly accurate. And he did predict the end of the U.S. empire would happen right around the year 2025 at first. Then he updated that prediction to 2020. Then Donald Trump came in, and we now started to see what Johann Galtung had been talking about. And now Johann Galtung, he recently transitioned into the realm of the ancestors, and Donald Trump is back. And I think Donald Trump is back to finish off the American empire. And look at what he's done in his first 9-10 months of this since he's been back. Isn't he hasn't pretty much digging a hole for the American empire?
Well, you look at basically since post-World War II, the Grand European War, where the United States asserted itself as they took the baton from the other European empires to move forward to have the American empire. So the American empire has been on the rise post-World War II, but also within the empire itself, it's made some would say strategic blunders, and others would say that it's a cause that is the result of internal machinations. So it doesn't really matter. The fact of the matter is the American empire is in rapid decline.
Mm-hmm.
They feel themselves pressured to stay strong. So they're like the example I use is that a person that only has a hammer, so he treats everything like it's a nail.
Mm-hmm.
And so the empire is in decline. Internally, the moral rot, the perversion, the corruption, the dystopian vision for this technocratic, neo-feudal world is going to destroy the empire as we know it, and they're hoping that it'll morph into something different. But I think what's going to happen, the agents who are undermining the United States as a sovereign nation and an empire are hoping that it will crumble. And of course, in the face of this crumbling, the New World Order, Great Reset, Brave New World, whatever you want to call it, is going to emerge. And that's what we're seeing.
Brother
Dwara, did you want to comment on that as well?
You know, there's not really much I can add to that. I wholeheartedly agree. I think we have to pay very, very close attention to the technocracy and transhumanism. And in the last couple of weeks, it seems as though there is an even greater push, because we know that Urugu is on the decline. We know that they are almost themselves panicking at this point and trying to do damage control by exerting more control. So in the news lately, you've seen more talk about digital IDs. you've seen more talk about this control grid, and that's actually one of the articles that I had for today, which I'll just quickly mention. It's from the Children's Health Defense. On the backs of digital slaves, Musk, other Trump-era tech elites building global digital control grid. And then it goes on to name Elon Musk, Palantir founder Peter Thiel, President Donald Trump's AI and crypto czar David Sachs, J.D. Vance's mentor Curtis Yarvin, Mark Anderson, Director of the White House of Science and Technology Michael Kratsios, and then U.S. Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick, and then finally the notorious Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison and his son, which they don't mention but should be included because he's the one buying up a lot of this corporate controlled media, David Ellison. And so I submit this article to our people to understand that to understand really further what Baba Junius mentioned, which is that the technocracy is something that Trump is really pushing behind the scenes, or above ground for that matter as well.
Don't forget the financial component of that. So we're talking about the technocracy, the technocrats, the technology, and the gizmos, the mad scientists. But don't forget, in order for this to happen, they have to be funded. And so you have BlackRock, you have the so-called too big to fail banks, you have the CIA with its own proprietary asset management that's tied directly into DARPA and directly into quote unquote Silicon Valley.
Right.
So all of this is part and parcel of the big picture. And what we're talking about is technocracy. They will become the new lords of the manor. Now they're not going to kick the Rockefellers and the Gates to the curb because they're part and parcel of it. But they're the new players. They're the new kids on the block, and they're exerting and asserting a lot of pressure and influence to reshape and reconfigure what will be the new world order.
Yeah, that's a very important point. And I heard something in what you were saying, and I know you're going to recognize what I'm going to mention. But first of all, let me say greetings to those of you in our listening audience today. We have joining us on the YouTube. Eddie McCrory is in the house. He says, "Grand rising to the family." And we have on the Rumble page, for Africa One is checking in from the UK, Hotep Mastermind Panel and Global LIB family, and King Jason, aka the Snotball, checking in. He sends his greetings as well. Peace, he says. Those who tuned in to LIB Radio before we went on the air today, we go live from 7 a.m. And those who tuned in on our You Now page, as well as those who tuned in on the listening app, Tune In app, heard me play part 1 of a 2-hour video that talks about the hidden history of the Sassoon family. Let me ask you, I think Baba Junius, are you familiar with the Sassoon family?
You're talking about the ones that have the the cosmetic people?
Yeah, it's much bigger than that. Dwara, because as much as I study, as much as we know, today was the first time I looked into the Sassoon family, and I owe it to my brother from the UK, Brother Miles, who talked about the Sassoon family. 7, and I'm putting up a video right now, and I don't want anybody to click on that video. Just save it, put it to the side, but stay with us for a while because we're going to put all this in context. The Sassoon family, 7 out of every 10 boxes of opium exported to China were trafficked by the Sassoon family, earning a profit of 1.4 billion taels in 80 years. Oh, the story gets much more than that. The Sassoon family, once dubbed the Rothschilds of the East, built immense wealth through trade and finance across Asia, but their legacy today is more fragmented and less publicly visible than the Rothschilds or Rockefellers, whose dynasties remain influential and diversified. And the diversification of the empires, the Sassoon family is still operating a massive global empire, but of course they have diversified. Brother Dwara, had you ever heard about the Sassoon family?
No, this is the first time I'm hearing it. Could you spell that for us?
Sassoon. And I did put up a link on, I'm putting up a link right now for the YouTube family to check it out. I'll put that one in the private link there as well, in the private comments. But this is the most evil enterprise that I have ever heard of. At their apex, according to different websites, they were exporting anywhere between 10 million or 10,000 tons and 650,000 tons of opium per year into China, which would have created addicts between 10 million and as much as 70 million addicts in China during the Opium Wars. At the beginning of the first Opium War, the Sassoon family came in, got in deep. They were largely the drivers of that first Opium War. And there was only a short break between the two Opium Wars over there. There was something else that happened. It might have been the Japanese invasion or whatever. But then the second Opium War. And quite simply, when it comes down to pure, unmitigated greed, evil, the Iraqi originated Jewish Sassoon family is the most evil thing I've ever studied. I'm serious. And we know with their extensive diversification, they owned Shanghai, they built Shanghai, all of the major hotels over there. They diversified all across the Chinese economy, from fashions and fabrics to everything you can think of. The Jewish Sassoon family was in it. I cannot overemphasize just how evil they were.
So I'm also making a connection, and I think we lost Baba Junius.
Yeah, he's back now, I think. Oh, no, he's going in and out. Oh, I have him. Gotcha. We got you up, Baba Junius. You were saying, Dwara?
So I just wanted to quickly ask a question. You said Iraqi Jewish family, correct?
They were a Jewish family, their origins are from David Sassoon, who was born in Iraq. He moved to India and then sewed up the opium trade, bought up all of the opium, which the British military ended up supporting the continuation of their operations when they were ever threatened. Even when the Japanese came in and took over the China, etc., the position of, because they owned so much of assets in China, the Sassoon family basically accommodated the Japanese for as long as they could. And when the Japanese started arresting everyone that was foreign in China, they put the Sassoons in a special incarceration, which they were not starved or whatever because of their long-standing cooperation with the Japanese fascists.
So my question then becomes, could we extend their evil, malicious influence to the heroin epidemic that plagued our people in the 40s, 50s?
I didn't really see that connection there, although we can only imagine that residuals of their vast empire would have extended. I just have a few notes on this connection. Now, on this past Friday, I'm doing a series, Making Money Fridays. I did a story which was about Hong Kong's banking system The name of it, The British Banking Legacy, The History of HSBC, which stands for Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corporation, The British Banking Legacy, and China's Wealth. So at the end of that discussion, I had gotten into the fact that the Rothschild family had been over there and had been very influential during this time. The Rothschild, obviously significant in the banking. But then my original source that inspired me to do this series sent me this note on the Sassoons, and it says, "You may never have heard this," and I was shocked. I'm just going to the notes I have on this, the details are immense. I'm just going to, couple bullet points. This is the Sassoon family, origins, Baghdadi, Jewish merchants who rose to prominence in Bombay, Shanghai, and London during the 19th century. Industries, opium trade, textiles, shipping, banking, and real estate. Their legacy, they built iconic properties like the Sassoon House in Shanghai, known for philanthropy and Orthodox Jewish support, referred to as, quote, the Rothschilds of the East due to their prominence in Asian markets. Modern holdings, including the Sassoon Family Continuation Trust, claims to be the world's oldest Jewish trust, established in 1495, and announced plans to transfer $100 billion in assets to the U.S., primarily from Switzerland. And lastly, entities like J. Sassoon Financial Group, LLC, and Joseph Sassoon Group operate in private wealth and corporate finance. Junius, you have often mentioned here on LIB Radio that these incredibly rich families, they don't necessarily announce themselves to the public.
No, in fact, what they do is they set other people up. And when we look at the Industrial Revolution, for example, focusing in on Britain and the United States, the key investors were the Rothschilds and their co-religionists and their cousins through marriage or their in-laws, who later became some of the other major bankers, but they just weren't on the level of the Rothschilds.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they were in the shadows of the Rockefellers, the Carnegie, the Vanderbilts, and all of them, but they financed them. They helped them. They gave them entree and access to their money and into their connections, and some of them even intermarried with them. And so the
That's
same
right.
thing is probably happened with the Sassoon family.
Yeah. And Alexander Hamilton was the Rothschild's agent in the United States.
And he was the one who
they set up the central bank, right?
First U.S. bank. Now, we think, well, so what? Well, banking on a global scale was dominated by the Rothschilds. And they control the banking, the central banks in Europe. And today they control the central banks around the world. A lot of these nations that are targeted for demise are targeted simply because they've refused usury or refused to have a Rothschild owned or controlled central bank in their country. So they're put on this list and they're targeted for destruction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's so much to this. First of all, let me say greetings in the house. We do have Brother Ronan is checking in. He said, I sent you a donation, Kitty. Did you ever get it? Yes, I did get it. Now, the donation, I don't know where it came from. I think it was from Cash App, but thank you so very much, Brother Ronan. This is your radio station. You've been with us for a long time. And he says a couple of other points he makes. He says, greetings to Eddie. He said, that means China is well aware of the game beyond the average American. Oh, yes, China knows the game. Sandra Muhammad is checking in. She says, good afternoon, still learning. And Rhonda Ronan says greetings to her. So thank you, Brother Ronan. And you and I, we can talk as soon as we can. I'd love to talk to you. I want to say greetings also to Nguvu, who's checking in for our Rumble family. And greetings, he says, Sawubona. Peace and blessings, my brothers. And Sawubona, I see you. We see you. I want to share you just 3 paragraphs of what I shared on Friday. The Friday report was extreme. Took it 90 minutes to lay it out, and now today I added another 90 minutes or more of research to that. So I'll do part 2 next week. But here's 3 paragraphs. By the end of the 19th century, the Rothschild family controlled half of the world's wealth, gaining control of America's money supply. In 1791, the Rothschild family gained control of America's money supply through Alexander Hamilton, the family's agent in Washington, D.C.'s cabinet. When the family established a central bank in the U.S. named the First Bank of the United States, which received a 20-year charter from Congress in 1791. When Congress refused to renew the charter in 1812, the Rothschilds threatened the U.S. with a most disastrous war with Britain. The U.S. stood firm, following through on their threat. A second war broke out between the United States and Britain. The British war effort was financed by the Rothschilds. When the World War ended in 1815, UNS finances were in shambles. By 1816, Congress passed a bill authorizing a second Rothschild-dominated central bank with a 20-year charter named the Second Bank of America. This bank gave the Rothschilds control over the American money supply again. One more line. In 1923, the Rothschilds took over the financial operations of the Catholic Church worldwide. You were saying, Baba Junius.
Not only that, there was a lot of resistance to the establishment of the bank.
That's right.
When the first charter expired, there was a big debate and brouhaha. And one of the champions against the charter, the second bank, I believe, was Andrew Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, there was an assassination attempt on his life. It just the assassin's gun misfired, didn't go off.
Mm.
So that set the tone for what we see in history. There are rumors that John Wilkes Booth was the puppet, a ploy, or an agent of the Rothschild. It's clear in my mind that John F. Kennedy, one of the reasons he was killed was because he was determined to undermine the Federal Reserve Bank and have America print its own currency and have its own banking system devoid of the Rothschild influence.
That's right. Because these central banks are not U.S. government owned. They're private.
No. The Federal Reserve just uses the name Federal Reserve. They're owned by a cabal of about 12 different privately owned banks. And we need to understand these banks, even though they might be located or have branches in New York or maybe other places in the United States, they take orders from the Bank of England, which is owned by the Rothschilds, which is a separate entity within the city of London itself. And nowadays they have the Bank of International Settlements, which is the central bank of central banks, which ensures a global monopoly or control over central banking. So it's not the stuff that we're told in the propaganda and the lies and deceit that we're taught in civics or in economics. It's a whole different ball game. And once we understand that ball game, you understand a lot of world events. And Keedy talked about the so-called War of 1812. that simply was a Rothschild war. It's the only war that this country has fought where it was actually attacked and had to take a defensive posture. All these other wars is basically there for territory resource to build up the American empire. But that was the only war for real, that they had to ways to defend themselves.
Mm-hmm. Very, very good. There's
And
a question.
by the way, the Rothschilds put pressure on Lincoln during the so-called Civil War, which is really the war between the states. And his greatest fear was that the Rothschilds would support the Confederacy, and that France and Germany, and of course there was a Rothschild bank in France. I mean, not Germany, but in France, and some of the other European quote unquote powers would side with the Confederacy.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
Dwyer, did you? Oh, go.
One more
I'm
thing.
sorry. Mm-hmm.
And if you go back, when we're talking about global history, the Tsar Nicholas sided with Lincoln, sent Russian fleet to the West Coast and the East Coast to prevent the British and possibly the French from getting involved. That's why they hated him and his family, they being the Rothschilds, the Zionists. That's why they set out to destroy Russia, which they did.
That's right. Dwyer, much of this is all new to me.
Mm-hmm.
You have any thoughts you want to share about this? Could such evil surpass our imaginations?
It's hard to say. To be honest with you, I'm just sitting at the feet of you two Babas, my elders, right now, and learning and taking copious notes. One quick question I'll say is that that link that you posted in the comments section, I can't get that to work. The one that ends in .htm.
Oh, HTML. Try putting an
Oh,
L at the end of it.
all right. Sorry about that.
No, that was my fault. I cut it off when I took off the
Okay, got it.
Facebook link. Got it?
Yep, I
Okay.
got it. Thank you.
All right. I see a question on the YouTube page. Brother Ronan asks, Kitty, did this Sassoon family connect to Mao Zedong and communism? And I had to go to AI search to get that. What was their relationship? There was no direct relationship between the Sassoon family and Mao Zedong's socialism. In fact, Mao's rise marked the end of the Sassoon's influence in China. Says Sassoon family, a wealthy Baghdadi Jewish dynasty, built a vast commercial empire across Asia in the 19th and early 20th centuries. But with Mao rejected foreign capitalist influence, so therefore with the communist victory under Mao Zedong, they represented the end of those capitalist interests. As a result, the Sassoon family lost their holdings in China, withdrew from the region, and then they effectively transferred their holdings first to Hong Kong, and then later moved to centralize their ambitions in Europe, in Britain, in London, Switzerland, and of course, New York City as well. So that's a great question, brother.
I'm looking at
Yes.
a website now.
Mm-hmm.
It's www.fofahk.com, and it's revealing the 10 most influential Jewish families in the world, legends of wealth and their untold stories. Number 1 is the Warburg family. Number 2 is the Kadoorie family, Kadoorie family. 3, Reichman family. 4, Oppenheimer. 5, Wolfson. 6, Sassoon. 7, Guggenheim. 8, Smorgon. And 9, Arison. And number 10, the Rothschild family.
Mm.
And I would also, and I think, did I mention, because there's another Yeah, the Oppenheimers are on here, and of course the Goldman Sachs and some of the other uh, private bankers are spinoffs of the Rothschilds.
Mm-hmm.
Could you
Well,
post that in the private chat, Baba?
I,
I was trying to find it in the
I
background,
just
but
clicked it off. Hold on a minute.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Sante San. Yeah, we're starting to see some other themes and links and connections here, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, these are things that we have known, we've suspected, we've discussed, but the
Hmm.
extent to which it is going on is blowing my mind as I study it in real time.
Hmm.
And on one hand, it almost makes one feel as if this is a lost cause, opposing them is a lost cause, but it's not. We just have to get back true to the roots of power on earth, to the 5,000 plus year legacy before the Scarlet Council took
Mm.
over the reins of spiritual power on the planet, which they captured from ancient Kemet, from our ancestors.
Hmm.
It will be tough, but it can create an outcome by which we could overthrow this evil dynasty and persist for another 5,000 years. In the book, Conspiracies and High Crimes, I had a chapter under under the term, I can't remember the name of the chapter, but I used research from Manly Palmer Hall, along with a number of other sources, to piece together how this evil, what he called the Scarlet Council, ended up taking power away from the mysteries system of Africa, which was no mystery to the people who founded that system. It's become a mystery to overwhelming majority of us now because we don't understand what we did in the past. But it's available for us to reclaim. It's going to be tough, though. It's going to be real hard. It may take us 300 years to reclaim and to restore order to this planet. But what is 300 years in the history of the civilization of the human race?
Well, you raise a stratagem because that's the only way it can happen. It can't happen through quote unquote revolution. It has to happen through a social and metaphysical movement where families are reunited, strengthened, and we embrace the values of Ubuntu, Ma'at, and live them and structure our society around it.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, there's anything else is just a stopgap measure, as we've seen in the other so-called modern revolutions, or even the revolution, the American Revolution, which is a lot of myth and fairy tale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whew. Are there any other stories we need to be tuning into? I do hope that people will go back to find the program from this past Friday. It is up on YouTube, it's up on the Rumble channel, and it is on my Facebook page. And look at what I shared. There were a lot of references that I put into those programs, as well as I'm going to go back in and do part two and list those other families that were on your list, Baba Juniors. Now, your list that you shared, was that listed by their wealth estimated to be in
Nah,
these families?
I don't think so,
Yeah,
because they had
because
this had the Rothschilds at the bottom.
yeah, and I would put the Rothschilds very close to the top.
Right.
Right. Right. And also, we remember there were other, just like I shared how the Rothschilds and their agents bolstered the fortunes of the Carnegies, the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts in order to boost the Industrial Revolution. They also propped up some of the WASPs, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant firms on Wall Street.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And so they have their tentacles in just about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, even and what's the guy from South Africa, the British guy who they have all the scholarships named after.
Rhodes.
Rhodes, Cecil Rhodes. They propped him up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be an interesting party going forward, an interesting dance. And I think resistance for me is the only thing that I could, that one could do toward the interests of correcting this. Personally, I think we should attempt to correct it in this generation
Yes.
because the world is crossing a bridge right now, going into the new digital age, the impact of the internet, and now we have the cryptocurrencies and everything coming in to change the complete global order. The rich, the wealthy have the resources to continue to study, understand, and manipulate as much as they can. But the mainstream people, we have been degraded to football on Sundays,
Yep.
college football on Saturdays,
Yep.
football on prime Thursdays, football on Mondays. We've given away 4 days of our week just to anticipate football.
I was going to say
that's all
something
by
a lot
design.
harsher.
You were saying, Dwara?
I was going to say something a lot harsher, but yeah, we'll go with what you said.
Robert Junius?
But that's all by design.
It is.
Now, they say it's a fake, it's a forgery, et cetera, et cetera. But if you get a hold of a copy, or you can just go online, go to your browser, put on the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, and read that, you will see that blueprint in operation. Just on one level, just what Keedy just said.
Mm-hmm.
But you also see it in operation in the problem reaction solution paradigm that they use, because they have the funds and the resources to create the problem and to manipulate the reaction and then push forward the solution. Stop and think in terms of the power that they have.
Now, I'm sorry, Baba. Go ahead.
Familiarize yourself with the book of an empire of their own, which tells a story of how the Ashkenazim Jews created Hollywood. That happened because they had the resources. They invested in the technology. They had the resources to build and invest in all the theaters, because remember, the studio system was a monopoly before they were broken up by the federal government. That's why we still have these Fox theaters, Paramount theaters. In the South, it was RKO and all these other theaters that were owned by the studios so they could exhibit the movies that they created. They created, when you look at the development of radio, television, and couple that with what we're seeing, what we saw with the writer's strike, and how it was held up because they wanted to get involved AI as well as streaming. They control a lot of what goes on because they have the money, they have the resources, and they develop the consciousness, because at the back of their consciousness is they have deluded themselves that they're the chosen people, and their goal was to bring about their empire or their rule on this planet, which is a distinct difference than, say, what the various nobles and the royals had, the European royals, in terms of their empires, or even the various popes. They're similar in this fact they want to control territory and the people, but as Keedy just said, it's much, much more wicked.
So if I could kind of turn this around just a little bit, by speaking into existence the converse. And it's very important that we study these works, like you mentioned, Baba Junius, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, Empire of Their Own, etc. And we understand who our adversaries are, what we're up against, what we have faced, be it through invasion, captivity, colonization, neo-colonization, globalism, etc. The converse of that, because I don't want to leave our people feeling as though we're doomed, even though fade to black is ever at the edge of our people. I think it's important that we also provide the converse. And for me, the converse is that we too have our own ancient indigenous systems of power, of our own protocols, of our own best practices and principles. One such book I'll offer is called The Gada System, Heritage of Humanity. And that's by Deribie M. Demeska, an Oromo Ethiopian. And in this book, it breaks down the entire system of the Gada, which is one of the world's first democratic constitutions, hundreds and hundreds of years older than the US Constitution. And there are such things as the principle of harmonious reciprocity, the principle of thanksgiving, the principle of sovereignty, the principle of dual moiety. And these things, harmonious balances, these things are things that I think we can apply, especially within the context of Kuji Chagalia villages. We oftentimes fail to realize that we are rewarded by saddling on the back of Sankofa and flying back into the past, not to stay there, but to pick up the gems, the jewels, the golden nuggets of wisdom that our ancestors created. And then, as Khalifa Akbar Sankofa reminds us, that the Sankofa bird needs to turn its head forward again and to fly into the present and into the future with that which we have reclaimed from the past. I've been talking about this for a little while now. The Gada system of the Oromo people in Ethiopia, one of the oldest democratic, one of the oldest true democracies. And there's so much wisdom in there that we can apply to our modern day problems. I think that is really what we have to begin doing, because so many of us are latching on to these Eurasian philosophies, thinking that we can get ourselves out of a bad situation using our adversaries' worldview.
To dovetail on what you just said, this young brother, Supreme Understanding, he's written several books.
Ashe, yep.
I encourage our viewers or listeners to check them out, because he literally documents the history of Black accomplishment, Black genius, When the World Was Black, volumes 1 and 2, and also Robin Walker's When We Rule. Because unless we have a grasp of this information, and it's insightful and it's in depth, we can't comprehend just how far the planet and humanity has been degraded. And understand this transhumanism, this technocratic is the ultimate. The ultimate Isfetian move away from everything that we did. When we actually ruled the planet, not by force, but by consciousness. Because we took Ubuntu and Ma'at with us everywhere we went.
That's right.
And we adapted to the physical environment and the ecological milieu that we encountered, but the essence except for the times where there was a fall off and that some kind of Sethian principles emerged,
Mhm.
was based on Ubuntu, the universal law of Ubuntu, and Ma'at.
Ashe. No, I appreciate you bringing that up, Baba. Baba Robin Walker is also coming out with a new book. I think it's set to be released in the beginning of 2026. That too is going to be an absolute game changer because, from what I understand, he is taking the most updated archaeological finds from around the continent, and I believe he's setting like 5 or 10 of the most important achievements that African people have made, and going into very much detail in that new book. I could be corrected if wrong, but the little bit I heard him say very recently seemed to connote that information, and that I think is half of our problem, isn't it? How can we find a way out of the plight, out of the predicament, out of the fade to black that we find ourselves in, if we do not even know ourselves and our ancestors as a people? Of course, we're looking to Europe and Urugu for all the solutions, including scientism and technocracy and transhumanism, because we don't know that we have created spiritual technologies that come from a completely diametrically opposed worldview.
Hmm. It reminds me of an image that I saw just this morning, and I did save this to my hard drive, and I want to somehow bring this up. This talks about the evolution of the identity crisis. In the 1950s, the image, it points to a member of the Nation of Islam in the bow tie and the kufi hat. In the 1970s, we were African, so we wore the shikis. And in the 1990s, then the Hotep crew comes to prominence. In the 2010s, it was the Moors. In 2020, we were African Hebrew Israelites. In 2025, the last evolution in this says Native Americans. So this identity crisis, essentially, we were Africans all along, but we kept changing our identity. And what will it be for the 2030s or 2030 and beyond? Will we revert then back to space aliens, the spooks from another planet?
But you know what? While that's something that we have to look at and examine and make some kind of judgment on. There are elements of truth in all of that because we were the progenitors of humanity on this planet. Unfortunately, everybody is taking a little piece from here, a little piece from here, and building their identity on that as opposed to seeing the larger picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Baba Kitty, where did you get? Is that something that you could post? That's not
That
only
picture?
yeah, that's not only funny, but it is kind of accurate. You know, I'm seeing that same evolution.
Yeah, I'll send it to you via email.
Okay.
And I just posted a link on a fabulous website. They do excellent research. It's realhistory.com. It's about the first civilizations. Most of them, they tend to be urban civilizations, but they verify the fact that they were black.
Wow. Yeah, I'm checking that out right now. realhistorywww.com.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, lots of things going in the world. Maybe we can pivot and talk about what is happening for our African continent, for African people. Hopefully, we'll have some good news to share with people.
Unfortunately, one of the articles I wanted to talk about, and it's found on the conversation.com. It's strokes on the rise in Africa. Very alarming. Stroke is the number one cause of death and disability in Africa. And some demographic is 316 per 100,000, and some figures are even larger. And the article talks about that there's no standardized protocol or treatment modality on a continental-wide basis. They lack a lot of the equipment. They lack a lot of the infrastructure to get a stroke, someone who suffers a stroke, to treatment immediately. Sometimes it could take a day and a half to get somebody to a facility. So this is alarming because, as Keedy always says, a lot of this is well within our control, well within our agency, to take care of ourselves health-wise.
Right.
And my question would be, okay, why are strokes on the rise in Africa? What's going on there that would be a causative factor for this? And I maintain it's the westernization of our people.
Right, is the adoption of the Western lifestyles, the Western diet in particular. Africans are able to purchase more expensive or spend more money on food now, especially with the younger generation. And what foods are they spending it on? In Africa, meat is considered to be a luxury food. So when an African wants to show off their prosperity, they take you out to dinner. They want to find you. They want you to eat meat. Or even the less wealthy families will get the lesser carcass parts to feast on. So they're boiling beef stews and meat stews and all this with the fat in it, etc. And also the proclivity of Africans now to go to sweet. You're having sugar is overwhelming people in Africa. I have clients and people that I deal with, from Africa, and it's just terrible what they have adopted. One young man, I won't mention his name, but I'm very, very proud of how he not only changed, but he's now bringing in his whole family, and he's become an advocate for living superfood. He was at age 27, I believe, at age 27, he was significantly overweight, obese. He had a number of serious problems that it took us about a year to go through and correct his main problems. Now he's all corrected, and he's going back and he's correcting his parents and his family, etc. But there is a great reluctance among African people, and I would say the same is true for African people over there. There's a great reluctance to change old habits. And even if those old habits are killing us prematurely, people don't want to change.
If I could add to that, an increased sedentary lifestyle, especially with the Eurasian idea of modernity with high tech use. And when I say high tech, I really mean high technology use, things that cause cancer, that make us sedentary, that damage our eyes from the blue light. And yes, I would agree with you wholeheartedly on the diet as well. There's a wonderful elder by the name of Wangari Kamau, I believe is her name. And she's from Kenya. And from Kenya to Ghana to Senegal to Congo, everyone that I've spoken to has been very clear with me that meat is not eaten that much traditionally. In some places, maybe once a month, just a small portion, once a month, maybe. Other places, maybe, because of colonialism, it's increased. But I wholeheartedly agree, Baba Keedy, that, the adoption of these Western dietary practices, I think it was last year, I think I reported on how the menstruation cycles of Dogon women were affected when they became urbanized and were introduced for the first time to Western foods. They were experiencing menarche at an earlier age, meaning the onset of their menstruation at a much earlier age,
Mm-hmm.
compared to when they were eating a more plant-based, natural, homegrown, traditional, Dogon, rural, uh, staple dietary regimen. And then
Mm-hmm.
lastly, I'll also say that the introduction of these seed oils, and you mentioned
Mm.
sugar, but the frying of the food is something that it always struck me. And street food is very popular because people are busier now, and again, that whole globalization of the Western lifestyle, and you've got to just kind of grab and go. And on the streets on the continent, there's an overwhelming amount of sweet, fried, deep fried, oil laden foods that I think also contributes. And everyone should check out your book on preventing stroke as well. I want to put that out there.
But just to
Yeah.
dovetail on what Dewar said, street food, fast food, think about what that does. Human beings traditionally were communal, collective.
Yes.
Food eating was a communal and collectivist activity.
Shay.
The more we move away from that, in addition to the type of foods we're eating, that holistic, communal, intergenerational opportunity for sharing, connectivity, all that, as we move away from that, the sicker we're going to be.
Yeah.
Because it undermines the very nature of us as human beings and spiritual beings being connected. And we're seeing that particularly in the United States as a result of the COVID psyop.
And
Mm-hmm.
to your point, Baba, if you're eating alone, which is reinforcing that Uruguayan, Eurasian, crass individual, or excuse me, rugged individualistic lifestyle, there's not going to be anyone, especially an elder, there to tell you that you shouldn't be eating that stuff.
Mm. That's right.
Well,
So,
stop and think about our state when we're eating, because food is essentially a connective, and food and eating are connective and integrated processes. Think about all the anxiety, the fear, the disconnectedness that goes on when we're eating food that was prepared in a situation that is not holistic in terms of taking into account spirituality, taking into and harmony, balance, etc., etc. So now, not only are we uptight, running, trying to get stuff, but the food we eat was prepared for that and that way, and it contains that kind of energy, and we're ingesting it, reinforcing this total negativity that's going on.
So,
that's
so
right.
Baba, I'm sorry, Baba Junior. So are you trying to tell me that when I order a Big Mac, that the chef didn't put love into that Big Mac while he was cooking it for me?
Yeah, because he's got to make a quota, man. He got to get it done in X number of minutes.
And if
Yeah.
you send it back, he may put more than love in it.
Well, don't worry. I'm definitely not ordering any Big Macs.
Yeah, I do see a couple of comments have come in. Queen Mother Kashiba has joined our conversation. Welcome to you, beloved. It's always great to have you in the house. Soda pop is everywhere. Yeah, it's everywhere on both sides of the sea. Not everybody's drinking it, but it is everywhere as a beverage. If you look at the advertisements, there's this ongoing joke on itself. The NBA or the NFL complaining that they're just being used to sell food.
Right. Yeah.
But it's true. It's
Yeah.
absolutely true.
Yeah.
And they're not just being used to sell food, they're being used to sell junk food, crap food.
Mhm.
I won't eat anything, nothing advertised in an NFL game. I've never seen them advertise broccoli or cauliflower, so I'm not messing with them. And no avocados either. Psh, nothing from me.
Well, not only that, that's for the viewers. When
That's
you
for the
go
viewers.
to the stadium, the venue,
Ooh,
the menus that they provide, and they know what they're doing.
they
They
do.
know their high salt content because
Yeah.
that would trigger you to want more soft drinks, so-called soft drinks, sodas, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And the food is a double whammy when you go to the stadium. Number one, because
That's
the
right.
price so high.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
right. And it's extremely expensive.
Right.
You walk out of there with an extra layer of nitrates on you, all over you.
Another comment come in from For Africa One. I looked at several packets of meat seasonings at my local African food store recently. The main ingredient in most of them was monosodium glutamate, the famous, infamous MSG. And that monosodium glutamate is not even food. It's a chemical designed to trick your brain. It's an excitotoxin. It's designed to trick your brain and make your brain say, I want more of that.
That is so interesting that she just said that, because I was just in the store doing the same thing. I saw a product called Jumbo crayfish flavor stock, and the ingredients to this are salt. So we know that's that's the highest ingredient, that it has the most amount of in this flavoring powder, salt. Then cornstarch, flavor enhancers, monosodium glutamate, like
Mm-hmm.
Queen Mother Kashiba mentioned, disodium 5, I can't even pronounce this,
Then it's not food.
ribonucleotides, exactly, sugar, maltodextrin, northern prawn 2%, flavorings containing fish, sunflower oil, spices, color, E160B, and then there may be, get this, there may be trace amounts of eggs, milk, celery, soya, wheat, mollusks, lupin, and mustard.
And
Crazy.
you know that means, right? That means they don't clean the machines that are making this product then.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man.
Wow, that's quite shocking. But it's not shocking to those of us who study the food supply system. I am on here at least 2 days a week are dedicated to exposing what people are putting in their mouth and how this is taking us out of competition, taking us out of life at premature age, premature stage. We can at least, if we tried, stop it from taking over the next generations. But where is the efforts? People are talking about my child is on the spectrum, this and that, almost as if you're proud to claim that your child is a victim of the stuff that you allowed them to consume. That's nothing at all to be proud of, if you ask me.
Look at science, how following the COVID side, we no longer even talk about our immune system.
Mm-hmm.
We've been duped and deceived by Big Pharma into believing that the solution to anything, let alone just masking or dealing with a symptom, is their concoction. It's not like, okay, you're a divine being and you have the universal intelligence within you that operates automatically to heal you. They've just wiped that and suppressed that from our consciousness.
That's right. Well, we're not done yet. Technically, especially if we add our African family to the mix, technically we're still on a positive childbirthing pace, even though the African American is the worst example of that. No, I would say the African in UK is the worst example of fertility per woman. Worst example among our entire global African family. The best example.
But that's not coincidental. That's the root of the mouth is in eugenics came from.
That's right. And luckily, we have Uganda and Niger as examples of the world's highest fertility per women in the country. And a lot of us are secretly Ugandans and Nigerians, etc., ourselves. So we're going to do better in the future. We're going to do better. If we can control a mass communication propaganda system and tune it in, fine tune it, and make it all work, invest in it, in 10 years, we could recover lost generations. When African Americans, just Africans in America, committed to over 23 million abortions since Roe v. Wade, that compound interest on that has turned out, according to my calculations, would be at this point about 45 million or more babies whose lives were interrupted because of Roe v. Wade and our joyously leaping in to prove to Urugu that we could do that better than them.
But not only that, so that's all part of the global depopulation. And I maintain that's one of their most successful ploys. But the other ploy is because those of us who are born, those who come onto this plane, generally were so stronger, they've had to implement a massive poisoning campaign to undermine our health and to make organic damages within our body the norm.
That's right.
So, people talk, well, you just mentioned the autism. It's deeper than that. There's more going on than just that.
All right. Well, we're going to move forward. If I think we've kind of worn out this topic, a few more people will have joined in commentary. Let me just share that. He said, Ronan is talking to me. He said, Keely, you will read Neely Fuller one day. I did attempt to read Neely Fuller's book. I'll just kind of leave it at that. Sandra says, I agree. I think she agrees with either Brother Ronan or she agrees with all of us. And we're all on the same page anyways. Is anybody other than myself reluctant to rely on Neely Fuller?
Yeah, I attempted as well to get into Neely Fuller maybe about 20 years ago now, and you know I'm gonna quote you if I can, Baba. It just seemed like that Francis Cress Welsing's The ISIS Papers, as well as Baba Neely Fuller's United Compensatory Code, it just seemed a little juvenile. It just seemed a little basic for me. I think the nuances are a lot more complex, and I think that we really do get hung up, and you address this so eloquently in Moving Beyond Racism. We get hung up on this European notion of externalism versus internalism. The reality is there are going to be people who are highly melanated, but whose minds are more Uruguayan, more Isfetian, more Eurasian than a brother in Cuba who passes for white but speaks Yoruba and has an unbelievably conscious African worldview in terms of its disposition and mentality. We've got to get beyond these Eurasian notions of race and dare I say colorism. You know, how long are we going to spend the rest of our lives, you know, trying to debate, you know, that everything black means this and everything white? To me, it's petulant.
Well stated. Very well stated. And I agree with every word you did state. We need to grow up. If we're talking about survival of our people, we need all hands on deck. We need Neely Fuller, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing to be on the same page as Delbert Blair and Nana Basu, what was his name? Asa Hilliard, and so many others. But there are these divisions within our African, pan-African, not pan-African, our pro-black consciousness, because I contend that Neely Fuller and Dr. Francis Cress Welsing never spoke out about Pan-Africanism. In fact, I heard Neely Fuller say, and I'm going to paraphrase him, I ain't no African, we ain't no Africans. And that statement itself kind of cuts you off from my understanding of what's going on over the course of a long period of time. He's not the only one to say that, but I did hear him say that.
We have to look at, and this is not to make an excuse, what I'm merely pointing out is the effectiveness of the mind control.
That's right.
All of us are recovering Negroes. All of us are recovering coons.
Great point.
And so, again, we have to develop a consciousness. We have to do the Sankofa initiative, understand the importance of Ubuntu and Ma'at, and attempt to live it and make it a foundational, multi-generational foundation. Because other than that, we're seeing that Urugu's technology is becoming even more and more vicious. More and more, on some level it's subtle, on other levels it's blatant, but it's designed, as Dr. Bobby Wright talked about, menticide, to destroy our mind.
And just the fact that we're using the term Urugu, we have to give respect to the woman, Dr. Patricia Hunt, aka Mama Marimba Ani, who brought us that term as a point of consciousness. Urugu meaning, from my understanding, the incomplete being.
Right.
And so, but how many of our pro-black African people in the United States, or not pro-black African, pro-black people, how many of us are even aware of the research of Dr. Marimba Ani?
Not enough.
Again, you know, we are in the minority amongst our own people. When you're out and about, people know things because they have access to the internet. They haven't been able to successfully internalize it, filter it, and then use it as a guide for their self-determination. You know, you have these vague facts. You can sit down and listen to conversations, but then when you look at the fruit of their behavior and actions, like, well, wait a minute, there's a disconnect there. Until we can, you know, it's almost like Sisyphus, you know, pushing that boulder, that Greek thing, pushing that boulder up the hill, and yes, he gets it up there, but at the end of the day, it rolls right back down. So he has to start all over again. That's our challenge. You know, to be engaged, to exert the energy, to get it up the hill, to keep it up the hill, and move on. We're caught up in the struggle of pushing it up the hill, which could be a metaphor for just about anything we're doing in this society.
Yeah, only to have it roll back down on our head as it reaches the crest, and we start all over again. We do. Go ahead, make your point. Now I'm going to read from the chat.
I was just going to bring up an article that I wanted to spotlight. Do you want me to wait until after you read the comments?
This is another direction.
Okay. So I wanted to just quickly highlight this article, which speaks a little bit to what we've been talking about. The algorithm is dividing us. Just give me 1 second. I lost the article. I'm sorry. Here we go. Okay. The algorithm is dividing us and we're helping it. So this is written by Molly Engelhardt of the Epoch Times. I thought that this was very interesting. I wanted, if I could, both your comment on this as to what you think about this, Babas. Okay, she says, last week I posted a short video from my ranch. I was standing next to my cows talking about the decision to import Argentinian beef and how I didn't think that was good for American farmers. Normally, my videos reach around 7,000 to 10,000 views. This one nearly hit 80,000 simply because I mentioned President Donald Trump. And with that came more than 2,000 comments, many of them hateful. People told me I was stupid, that I got what I voted for. They said I was aging poorly or that I looked unhealthy. Some even wished harm on my family. But here's what's interesting. No one ever said those things to my face. In real life, people are kind. We can disagree, but we still treat each other like human beings. Online, though, the rules change. The algorithm rewards division, and division drives engagement. Engagement drives creators to lean further into whatever keeps people talking. It's a loop. Anger fuels clicks, clicks fuel income, and income rewards outrage. She goes on to basically say that when she posts about God or faith or gratitude or anything that invites peace, the engagement drops dramatically. But when she talks about politics, the numbers skyrocket. And so she's left with this question: are people more devoted to politics than spirituality? Or is it that the algorithm boosts whatever makes us angry, frustrated, and divided? So I just wondered what you thought, what you, Bob, has thought about that in terms of how much, again, do we rely on this Eurasian technology? And is this ushering fade to black in even faster than if we were to say retreat and study more our indigenous wisdom ways and systems of indigenous knowledge?
Does it have to be an and or solution? Because I
Not at all.
see
Not at all.
merging everything that you're talking about. See, we, because of this external influence and because of the increasing complication of the society we are attempting to fit into and to master, we have been compartmentalized. So, and I think that compartmentalizing is a big, big part of the problem that persists amongst our people and amongst the larger society in which we are attempting to fit in. So, there is no one size fits all. Ultimately, ideally, to me, we would break up into committees. I can remember back in the day when in the conscious community, we would say, okay, we have these range of persistent problems, so we need to break up into committees. And we would, out of our good life family we had in Los Angeles, that was one example, we would assign a different committee to a different problem, a different day of the week. There'd be one committee dealing with black male and female relationships. There would be another committee dealing with, all of the various issues that we would have to commit to and defend our family against. I think we really need to get back to that point right now.
Ashe. And that's Kujichagulia villages as well, by extension.
That's right. The Kujichagulia villages would be a wonderful, wonderful example of how we could come up with the solutions. And so, hey, we're going to do it. Otherwise, we don't have any choice. We will perish.
Ashe.
One of the problems that very few in our community, or at least I haven't seen it, are questioning the ethical implications of AI. A lot of us are not familiar with what AI is. I was at a family function several weeks ago, and one of the persons at the table said, quite frankly, I don't know what it is. I don't have any idea. And I was just mentioning how AI has impacted things that we don't even consider. And I was talking about the electricity rates going up because of these data centers are using up so much energy, and they're billing consumers for it.
Right.
It's not just your use. And I say all this to say I'm starting to see, I mentioned it, I think 2 weeks ago, Caitlin Johnston wrote an article, AI is making things dumber. More and more people are saying that AI is making us lazy, particularly,
Mm-hmm.
I think Dewar mentioned intellectual laziness. And this is a fact. And the other fact is that AI is being incrementally superimposed in more and more things that we use. For instance, anytime I get an update on this phone, it's a fairly recent Android. It's more and more AI inclusive. More and more stuff is AI. And so it's like a creeping phantom that
Mm-hmm.
embracing society, and most people aren't even aware, or they think that it's something, it's really something else. And Dewar talked about the grid, the control grid. It's a critical factor in the control grid, and we're embracing it to the point we're embracing our own enslavement because it's part of the technocratic reconfiguration of the whole globe.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Um, and when you talk about the ubiquitousness of AI, this is where I insert my increasing complaint. It's an escalating complaint. The video culture that you and I have come to know on YouTube and have become apparently quite fond of because YouTube is the greatest source of video going out to the world. According to my analysis, it may be as much as 30% fake video.
Well, I would
And
say more.
that's quite high.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's more because more and more people are recognizing the threshold and the barrier between reality and fakery is
Mm-hmm.
shrinking. And
That's right.
a lot of things are going on now. You have to ask, is this real? Is this AI generated? Before it was computer generated. Now is it AI generated?
Mm-hmm.
Is that not the goal, to constrict information, knowledge, in such a way that you type a prompt into the computer, and instead of getting access to ancient African history.com, you get information that is scrubbed or
It's been
redacted.
scrubbed. That's right.
Right.
And increasingly, I say, and I found out this today and confirmed it today, when you search for anything to deal with Zionists or Zionism or Jewish people, it has been scrubbed and filtered. Apparently, I would say the cyber unit of the Mossad has first access to ChatGPT 5 or ChatGPT 4 because so many of these different AI search engines and apparatus we use, they go through ChatGPT, and everything is being scrubbed of its authentic Jewish content. I had to put in an extra couple of prompts to be able to get access to these things, such as I asked the prompt today, what was the relationship between the Sassoon family and Mao's socialism? And it tried to scrub that one, but it couldn't really do it. But here's the thing. I wanted to look at a book and I do this quite frequently. I'll have a AI summarize a book, and usually it's pretty good. So I asked AI summarize The International Jew, the book by Henry Ford. And then I had to put in a second prompt to be able to get something, and I said use quotes from Henry Ford for each chapter summary. So had I not put in that second part, the first one, chapter 1, The Jew in Character and Business, summary, Ford outlines stereotypical traits he attributes to Jews, focusing on finance and commerce. But with his quote from his words, it said, quote, the Jew is again being singled out for critical attention throughout the world. Now, Henry Ford's statement is absolutely true, but the Ford outlined stereotypical traits. That sounds like propaganda to me. And it goes on and on and on. There were 15 different chapters, and in each case, Henry Ford's words betrayed the summary that they put there. So this is number 15, the Jewish question in journalism. Summary claims, and it says that Henry Ford, assuming it's Henry Ford, claims Jews control media narratives, but his quote says, controlling the world's source of news, all Judan can always prepare the minds of the people for its next move. Now, personally, I find Henry Ford's own quotes to be much more useful in this scrubbing of the AI by apparent Israeli favoring forces.
Well, keep in mind, in Arthur Blair, aka George Orwell's 1984, Winston Smith's job was to rewrite history. And so we're seeing that as we speak. I'm encouraging our viewers and listeners, look up Unit 8200. It's the Israelis' most prestigious intelligence unit, where many IT programmers and developers are trained. So they're going after them young. There are a lot of these whiz kids. They're adolescents. It is the equivalent of the U.S. National Security Agency and the UK's GCHQ information warfare units. It encompasses cyber security, surveillance, data storage, and analysis. And this is going to be the template, because again, I mentioned all these data storage centers and these surveillance, all of this, and quite naturally, because they're out of Israel, they're Zionists. It's Judea first. Their notion of whatever they call themselves. So, yes, that is true. You are seeing a scrubbing of history, things that, and it's not just ancient history; it's recent history, things that we've experienced. And when you go back and you look into some of these search engines, it's either not there or it's the narrative is totally different.
To your point, not only Babakiti, but also I know the platform Redacted, as well as several others, got kicked off of YouTube for reading Pfizer's own paperwork, for reading information posted by the CDC. So yeah, that's
right. That's why I got kicked off too. It's the exact same reason.
Yeah.
So,
but see, we've been so desensitized, not just from the content in the media. So there's all this gratuitous violence and this frivolous sex and et cetera, et cetera. We've been desensitized to our own experiences, where now we're sleepwalking in this zombie-like state. And they're telling us and defining what reality is for us. And too often, folks are going for the okie doke. So it's TikTok. We talk about the reason. What's the family that you mentioned earlier? His son is buying one of the
Ellison.
the Sassoon?
No, the Ellison. No.
Oh, sorry about that. Ellison. Yeah, Ellison, who is a member of the Zionism crew as well.
Sure,
right.
But I'm saying that's why he's part of the consortium that's buying TikTok. Your guy Van Jones was on. I saw a snippet of him on Bill Maher's show, and he was decrying the fact that much of what was posted on TikTok was pro-Palestinian and pro-Gaza. So
and anti-Semitic. He did use that term.
Yeah, he used that. Now I was just about to say. So he was doing his bit. He was earning his money.
Right.
Compradors for them.
Right.
But that
That's
is
right.
telling the truth, and that's why they're buying it. And he was saying what they need to do is, in essence, infiltrate TikTok and control the flow of information and the narratives there. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're going to do it not just with TikTok, but anything else that is out there, because they have to gaslight people into changing the narratives. You know, the whole thing: are you going to believe me or your lying eye? You know,
That's right.
the genocide in Gaza, or the wars that they're waging on their neighbors. The fact that the size of Israel has increased exponentially since 1948, all through warfare and skullduggery. Are you going to believe that, or are you going to believe that we're taking a defensive posture and we're the chosen people and we can do whatever we want? That kind of stuff.
Mm.
That's right. Well, Aluta continua. If you don't mind, can we pivot a little bit? Couple of comments that are very important. Queen Mother Kashiba, thank you for being patient. Why are the most melanated people in Sudan being eliminated by the white Arabs who desire their land and precious metals? That's a good question. I would say the reason why is because they can. And they can because there is a very serious lack of African unity around the world. And I would say that unity that the African world has been asking for, begging for, it should be led by Africans from America as the most wealthy and well-connected, well-educated people in history. And we have lost our minds. I took a word out of there.
Mm.
We lost our minds. Somewhere between all of those transitions from the nationalists of the 50s or the Muslims of the 50s to the nationalists of the 60s to the 70s, Pan-Africans, etc., to end up being Cherokee now, we lost our friggin' minds.
Yeah.
And a lot of the Arabs, as Keely has pointed out, and also we mentioned last week, or we should have mentioned when we talked about the United Arab Emirates being one of the key factors in the ongoing conflict in Sudan. They're being used as a term called a cat's paw, where somebody's being manipulated or a pawn or somebody else. So the Arabs, yes, they were territorial. Yes, they invaded Africa. Yes, they came and they did not come in peace.
Mm-hmm.
Many of the Africans were forced to submit or die with
That's
the
right.
proselytation when they were proselytizing Islam.
And we were castrated and the women raped.
Well, that and when the Arab slave trade, it was primarily for females. The males were castrated. Those who survived were used as eunuchs, and the females, it wasn't about labor like the Europeans. It was for harems and for sexual exploitation for the most part.
That's right.
Most of our people don't know this. Most of our people who have embraced Islam have embraced it because of what it professes to be. And ironically, we're probably more devout than the Arabs in terms of its practice. Because we're a spiritual people, because there's something in it, obviously, that they stole from Africans anyway, as well as all the other religions, that we can resonate with and relate to. But again, the Arabs who call the shots or who are being puppetized by the Europeans and even the Ashkenazim, because the Wahhabis, who are the most radical form of Islam in Saudi Arabia, when you dig deep enough, there's some connections with the Ashkenazim there. So
that's right.
Osama bin Laden and all the Wahhabis are the ones who wage war on other Arabs because they're not as fanatic. They're not as fanatic as the Wahhabis want them to be. I'm saying all this to say that we need to be clear. Yes, I have brothers who have accepted Islam. I know them. They're very devout.
Mhm.
We need to understand those Arabs, a lot of those, they're not our friends. They're not our brothers. They've done
Mm-hmm.
harm to the continent
Mhm.
of Africa, let alone what they did under the Ottoman Empire.
That's right. Brother Dwyer, did you want to comment on that?
I'll just say too that recently I heard a scholar, a Nigerian scholar in the UK, United Kingdom, say instead of referring to sub-Saharan Africa, he refers to it as Greater Africa, because
Mm-hmm.
there's always this schism, this split to try to separate the Sahel from Greater Africa, below the Saharan Desert. And I agree wholeheartedly that the Arab was an early adversary of our continental brothers and sisters and our people in general. However, I think when it comes to Northern Africa, I think it becomes complex. You do have highly melanated people within the Tuaregs and the Amazigh and
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that, the Beja, and so I think things get very complex. I also know that much like Christianity, i.e., or a la Ethiopia, there has been, I think, to some degree, a successful Africanization of Islam, such that it is much more in line and in lockstep with traditional views. But I'm kind of a purist, so I like to go to the fundamental core instead of looking at what other quote unquote gifts, much of which are is poison wrapped in sugar, which is
Mm.
also poison, by the way. I think we need to tap in to what we created, and I see everyone kind of dancing around that. There's a book on Black Buddhism, and it's called like African Consciousness or African Wisdom. But the whole entire book is dedicated to Buddhism, and it always leaves me with the question: Do our people really fundamentally know the geniusness of what we created? This is a quick aside. I was listening to a broadcast recently that said that the overwhelming success rate for arranged marriages is so overwhelmingly successful. That was an ancient practice that our people implemented, such that you didn't come into the situation with biases like, oh, I don't like the way her nose looks, or oh, she's kind of rumpy. You know, I like tall, slender women. You didn't come into that situation, marriage, with biases. Instead, your cousins, your brother, your sister, your parents, your grandparents, your auntie, your uncle came together and said, is this family going to fit with the values and expectations of our family?
That's
Are
right.
these families going to be a good match?
Right.
And we've gotten so far from that consciousness and that African worldview that I'm sure you Baba's experience, maybe even on the weekly, meeting someone that talks all about Africa, that flies the red, black, and green flag, that can quote Marcus Garvey off the top of their head, but are still locked into these Eurocentric consciousness, worldview, cultural paradigms that we must find a way to break out of. And that is going to require work on our part. And that's what I'm hoping to facilitate our people to do, that inner work.
That's right. Good point.
Just to dovetail on what you said, again, Dr.
Supreme
Supreme
Understanding.
Understanding, his
I
book,
say.
Black God, he delves into that and the importance of Black people and our spirituality and how it's been expropriated and taken and used and manipulated. The other thing got to remember, romance is this whole notion of romance and romantic love is a relatively modern phenomenon that has been pushed by Hollywood in the modern era, because in ancient times, what you just said, the arranged marriage was the norm, because marriage was a social contract, not just between two persons and their families, but the total community.
That's right.
Again,
That's right.
Ubuntu, collectivism, ma'at, reciprocity, which is nothing more than intergenerational mutual aid and responsibility. When we understand those ideas behind those words, we see just how brilliant our people were and have the potential to be, but also how far we've fallen away from that.
Right.
That's right. I want to quickly, since we're near the end of the show, I want to pivot. Gus is asking the question, do you think the U.S. will invade Venezuela? Robert Junius?
I think they will take some kind of military action. I was visiting a friend of mine in rehab this morning, and those goofy Sunday morning programs was on, and they had this guy who was talking about the assets that they had, the Marines and the Navy, and he didn't come right out and say they're planning an imminent military action, which was the question that was asked of him. But I think at the very least, there's going to be a covert push to destabilize them.
Yeah, well, I'd say that's probably going on at this point. Dwara, do you want to answer Brother Gus's question?
I'm gonna quote you again, Baba, from your wonderful library of programs. You did a program, wow, maybe 15 years ago now, maybe further actually, that you had spotlighted that the U.S. had been involved in some type of conflict, at least one every 2 years since 1776. So given that playbook, like Baba Junius always reminds us of, I don't see how they wouldn't get involved in some type of a skirmish or conflict, because that is their nature and that is the history of this country.
Okay. Well, I would say to Gus's question, yes, to a point. I do not think the U.S. will ever attempt again to put ground troops into Venezuela. They will meet a worse fate than what happened in Vietnam. But I do think that they are, right now as we speak, continuing to escalate this. Just like I do not think that the U.S. is serious about going into Nigeria. The Nigerian narrative of going in with guns ablazing, quote unquote, from Donald Trump's mouth, that's not going to happen because the stakes are much too high. And if the U.S. does decide to go overt with its aggression toward Venezuela, Colombia, and other nations in the region, it will be met with the firing of missiles from Venezuela at U.S. aircraft in the Caribbean Sea. The USS Gerald Ford is there now, the largest aircraft carrier in history, and the firing of missiles at those will bring a real quick halt to it or a very quick escalation. And if it escalates, there's only a couple of steps before we are at a thermonuclear exchange. And I dare not even think too much about what would happen there. The Russians have assets they've recently shifted there. The Chinese are developing their relationship with Venezuela. Venezuela and Nigeria are now members of BRICS. And if we look at BRICS Plus, which includes at least, 24 or 26 nations, depending on how you count them, that's just too powerful a collective to be dragging that into an international conflict. Brother Gus, the worst I can say, or the best I can say is I do hope for all of our sake it doesn't happen. But within the mind of Donald Trump and the establishment that's surrounding him, we just don't know.
The other factor that you did not include is Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, Cuba will come to their aid. And also the assets that the Russians supposedly are giving them are their advanced missiles.
That's right.
So I think, well, we talked about this last week. Donald Trump, his mental acuity is slipping, and he has people around him that are pro-war because that's all part of the global depopulation movement and the decline of the empire. But I think there are saner heads there who would push back against certain things. Like you had the one after the Secretary of War now, and Trump brought all the high-ranking military. There was one, I think he was a brother who from the Air Force who resigned because he said he just couldn't take it anymore.
That's right. That's right. Very true. Unless you had a comment, Brother Duara, a couple other stories I wanted to introduce to the program. Tanzania, we got to look close at what's happening with our East African nation of Tanzania. They recently held an election, and it says, hey, here's a quote. I'll put up this headline. Tanzania, if thousands of Tanzanians are dead, silence is not an option. African Unscrambled, written by Philip Van Niekerk, and essentially is saying there appears to be, well, the second article headline says, calls grow for an investigation into Tanzanian election killings. So apparently there were many more people killed during that election than what we have come to understand.
I see.
So I'm going to post those articles up for our listening audience. The G20 is about to take place in Johannesburg. It's coming up. It's said to be a defining moment. Begins, I think it begins this week, November 22 to 23 in Johannesburg, the G20 conference. Very important because Africa is becoming more assertive. Donald Trump's recently threats against South Africa. He is staying away from it, and he's sending some of his other representatives from the State Department, etc., including the idiot from Florida, who's now Secretary of State's going to be there. And the last point,
I saw something today. He's not coming. Somebody's not. No, J.D. Vance is not coming.
J.D. Vance is not coming. So I think the Secretary of State, whose name I can't think of right now, is going to be representing them.
Rubio.
Yeah, Rubio. And last point I will make about how serious should we take the release of the Epstein emails. If you look into them, there are a lot of them. They do indicate at this point that Donald Trump knew that Jeffrey Epstein and Maxine Glasswell were trafficking in children.
Yes. It also
Glaxine Maxwell, I think was her name.
Last name is Maxwell.
Yeah, Maxwell.
Ghislaine Maxwell.
Thank you very much for correcting
Sounds like
that.
Glyco Smith and Klein. You know, it's all related. It's all related.
That's all right. But yeah, quick comments from both of you.
Well, it also highlighted that the New York Times and USA Today were both in contact trying to do PR spins for Jeffrey Epstein, which I find very, very interesting.
Yeah, Zionist Press is supporting the Mossad agent.
Basically.
Very.
Basically.
I wrote, and this is what I was going to talk about today. The media focus on Trump as a distraction from Epstein's role with the Mossad and its pedophile entrapment campaign, as well as, remember, he was a Wall Street trader or broker or something, got in trouble, and they gave him a little slap on the wrist. And then you see all these people now backtracking. So now, what's his name? Jamie Dimon is saying, well, I regret any involvement I
Yeah.
had with them. It's really not that significant.
Yeah.
There's a website that has gone dark. It was called let me see. I think it was Wall Street on Parade.
Wall Street on Parade.
And one of the things that there's a husband and wife couple, and it's called Wall Street on Parade. And one of the things they kept harping on was the involvement with some of the Wall Street bankers with Jeffrey Epstein and some of his associates and shenanigans with their money. And I've noticed they haven't posted anything for the past couple of weeks, so I don't know what's going on there. But the Epstein thing is so multifaceted and such a wide network that once they start digging, it'll be all over.
If I may just quickly add that the emails also revealed that not only was it sex trafficking and child sex trafficking, but it was looks to be like arms trafficking, weapons trafficking, drug trafficking, as well as supposedly he was brokering peace negotiations between Mongolia and Israel or a couple of other countries, and was able to secure a meeting with Putin as well.
Yeah.
So
it was a back channel for Putin and one of the Israeli leaders. Yep.
So Eid Mubarak, I think.
Right.
And
right.
So these tentacles run really, 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 really deep.
Don't forget something that has come out, but they try to suppress it. A lot of folks are fascinated by the sex trafficking, the underage boys and girls sex trafficking. Don't forget the organ trafficking that Israel and the Jews are deeply involved in.
Well, let's begin to wrap it up. I'm reminding our listening audience they can go to Kidi.biz, and I'm putting up the link right now, to buy books. Buy books. If you're asking for me, we need to solve the problems. And the books that I have written do have serious solutions in all of them. So I'm putting up that link right now. I put it up as Kidi.biz, but it's Kidi.biz, B-I-Z, /CRP 2012 will get you into that catalog. And thanks you always for the support that you do give us. Very important. Let's begin to wrap it up.
Last thing I want to say is don't forget to be as supportive as you can to this venue. There's no amount too small and obviously no amount too big, but we need your support. When I say we, I'm talking about us collectively. He's shouldering this all on his own. I've seen firsthand what that can do and how stressful it can be. Like I said, there's many internet radio stations that I was affiliated with have gone under, not for lack of trying, not for lack of innovative programming ideas and material, but because of lack of support.
Yeah. And there's so much that we can do. We got to just get in the game, put our feet forward, and say we aim to do our best in this field of competition known as, what's it called? It's the game theory. So, go ahead, share.
I was just going to echo what you both stated. Please, LIB Global Family, continue to support LIB. And, we are what we eat, as the old expression goes. And so are we consuming isfet or are we consuming ma'at? And on LIB, it is a steady diet of ma'at. And so we must keep this alive. And just want to thank both of you, Babas, for allowing me to sit at your feet and to continue to stand on your very, very, very broad shoulders It is always a divine pleasure. Ashe.
Yeah, well, it is our divine pleasure. And while your humility is definitely appreciated, but I'd say at this particular point, you are standing to the point that, you, Robert Junius and I, we can stand on your shoulders and feel like we're being uplifted. Yeah, and that
Ashe.
sounded a little clunky, but I think you understand the point I'm making.
Yeah.
You
Ashe.
have
Ashe.
risen so strong, dear brother.
Thank you,
It's a
Baba.
strong,
And
strong warrior, strong presence, strong energy, and there is a authenticity that people can readily sense about you. So that's a major asset.
thank both of you,
Awesome.
Babas, very much. I'll be sure to get some lead bottom shoes to hold us up.
I say. And on that note, I think we've gotten through. Did you get everything in for today, Brother Dwara?
Ashe, I did. Thank you both again.
Robert Junius, did you get everything in?
Yeah, just wanted to, yeah, we'll deal with this. I just wanted to talk about the U.S. household debt.
We got time. Please do.
Well, U.S. household debt has risen to 18.4 trillion in the third quarter of 2025. Student debt is 1.65 trillion. So when we talk about the decline and collapse of the American empire, these are factors.
That's crazy. And then we all talked so much about the international financing conspiracy, and we are feeding the beast. And the beast is being fed at such a rate that the beast has become huge, overbloated, and a lot of muscle to carry around those heavy weights that it's got to do. So I say stop feeding the beast where we can. I have chosen to take my stand in the area of stop feeding the pharmaceutical corporations, the food processors, the food corruption industries. Stop feeding the bankrupting medical technology companies. Stop it, stop it, stop it. Of course, then I'm going to turn on a football game, and then they're going to advertise a little blue pill to us all.
Yep.
So we're going to do better in the future. Please, everybody, I'm pleading with you. Please support it. Brother Ronan said earlier, did I get the donation he sent? Thank you, Brother Ronan. That is greatly, greatly appreciated. You can use our Cash App. You can use a bunch of different mechanisms to be able to make sure that your voice here at LIB Radio is not overlooked, is not ignored, that we do continue moving forward. At the bottom of your screen, you see the link, our Cash App, $KEIDIOBI. You can send cash via that Cash App right now. Right now. I'm not going to elaborate because y'all don't want to hear how pitiful my financial situation is right now. But the information, it's stronger than it's ever been. That's a good thing. On that note, I think we got you all tuned in for today. I want to thank you for being part of our LIB radio family. Baba Junius, you are appreciated. Brother Dwara, you are appreciated as you are being elevated. And we are the LIB radio family. You've been tuned in to your favorite. We aim to be your favorite. We are LIB radio, LIB TV. We are livinginblack.com. So thank you all. And Sandra Muhammad wrote Marco in the chat. I don't know what that means, but I know whatever it means coming from you, beloved, it is a good thing. So on that note, we are out of here for today. Thank you. We are grateful. Now I got a bunch of buttons to push. I should have been pushing them while talking in the background so we can get out of here and get on with the rest of our day and watch some of those lovely food commercials that are going to be coming up on our sports programming for today. Ha 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 ha, he says with a joke. And on that note, I got all the buttons pushed and now we are out of here for today. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning. We'll be back for another week of great broadcasting on your favorite. We aim to be your favorite. We are LIB Radio, LIB TV. We are living in black.com. Peace and prosperity.